administration could possibly spin something positive out of the WikiLeaks leaks, because you look at all this private classified information that's now out in public, let alone the people that could be dead now who are informants in the Iraq war that ended up helping us out, especially in the Sunni Triangle, or in Afghanistan where the Taliban finally has a name to those who are giving out intel that allows our troops to be successful. And there's little things like Silvio Berlusconi being called feckless by our State Department. That's not really going to help the next time we get together with the Italians. But when Robert Gibbs was on as a press secretary, I was a little bit surprised on his take.
This was what he said about Julian Assange. See if you agree.
Look, our foreign policy and our country is stronger than one guy with one website. We should not, and we should never be afraid of one guy who popped down $35 and bought a web address. Our foreign policy is stronger than that. We're a stronger country than that. We're not scared of one guy with one keyboard and a laptop.
What?
Well, that one guy who plopped down and bought that domain and has the laptop and is Skyping around the world talking about what he did has caused great embarrassment for the U.S. government. And when we asked Mr. Gibbs, you know, why haven't we heard from the president, he said, well, you know, we've heard from the Secretary of State, and she speaks for the president. But nonetheless, people would like to hear the president get mad about this, because a lot of people are mad about this.
It's caused a heck of a lot more than just embarrassment as well. I mean, you are talking about a major national security situation here. And for Robert Gibbs as a spokesperson, I don't know, I was shocked to hear him say that we shouldn't be afraid. Who thought of that line? Who thought of that line in the administration? We shouldn't be afraid of one guy.
Right.
Doesn't sound like they're going after this guy, folks.
And when you want to talk about hardcore, and you know what, how could the administration be in control of one private in one building blasting Lady Gaga that was able to transfer all this vital information to WikiLeaks?
They made it too available.
Right. Yeah, no one's saying that the president's responsible for that. But the fact that only one guy's under arrest, that might be a little concerning. The fact that the president hasn't come out might be a little concerning. That the Attorney General waited 6 months to prosecute this guy and try to get some charges and push Australia and Interpol to do the same thing might be disturbing. And the other thing is, maybe it's not in our best interest, or the Egyptians' best interest, Bahrainians' best interest, Saudi Arabia's best interest, and Qatar's best interest to know what private communiques are like behind the scenes.
Sure.
Because that, for whatever reason, it jeopardized their welfare in their countries. So maybe they're not going to be so candid with us behind closed doors, because no door is closed in the U.S.
Well, let's talk about some reaction to some of these cables. Bill Clinton, former president, says people may lose their lives and others could lose their careers because of the leak. Also, Hillary Clinton has weighed in.
Steve, that's unbelievable.
On that,
on that statement right there, in light of what Robert Gibbs said.
Considering the fact that the former president knows what kind of information is in those.
And the first document dump, as you recall, about the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, put 100 people's lives in danger. We don't even know if they're still alive. These were the informants who were working to help the United States as double agents in Afghanistan and Iraq. Their identities were exposed in that first document dump. And you're telling me that that's one guy with a laptop and we shouldn't be afraid of him?
We now know
this is astounding to me.
We now know that Special Forces is in Pakistan working with the Pakistani military. We also know that there's a major concern at the highest levels of our government about Pakistani nuclear weapons getting in the hands of terrorists, and that some terrorists might be on the inside of the Pakistani nuclear program. Okay, great. I think there was a reason why that's top secret, because we're doing things behind closed doors that maybe might be able to secure that. Now that we know that they know that they know that we know, I think that might be a little bit more than being scared.
That's a good way to put it.
Thank you.
Well,
I'm going to read it back and find out what I said.
Okay, so this is a reaction from the United States, but when you go around the world, suddenly a lot of people who live in some of these countries where our diplomats are talking about the leaders of those countries, if they're lucky enough to have some sort of information available to them, they're seeing that the United States, wait a minute, I've never heard that stuff before. You know, dictators like to clamp down on information that their people get. Anyway, Jamie Rubin, that is to say, former Assistant Secretary of State, was on the Stephen Colbert program last night and talked a little bit about that.
Like in the case of Yemen, and you'll probably agree with this one, if we're going to...
Don't count on it.
We're going to be able to use military force against an al-Qaeda cell in Yemen, and the Yemeni government says we can't tell our people that you do it, the United States. We're going to say we're going to do it. So we may need to have that conversation privately. If WikiLeaks is going to put it all over the world, maybe next time the Yemeni government won't be so willing to let us take out the terrorists inside Yemen.
So Jamie Rubin thinks that it's more than one guy with a laptop. I mean, I guess he does.
It's astounding.
It is
Well, the guy
astounding.
with the laptop is in trouble because now Interpol is going after him on unrelated rape charges in Sweden. And the other headline about Assange is he says Hillary Clinton should resign if it is true that, you know, she signed off on some sort of espionage or, you know, surveillance of world leaders, although we had Ambassador John Bolton on the program earlier today, and he said that at that level, she, you know, her signature appears on stuff, but she doesn't actually sign off on it. So that should put that to rest.
With us right now is one senator who has been outspoken against Don't Ask, Don't Tell, Connecticut Independent and Democratic Independent, who caucuses with the Democrats, member of the Armed Services Committee, Senator Joe Lieberman. Senator, first off, before we talk about Don't Ask, Don't Tell, can I ask you about what Robert Gibbs said to us about 10 minutes ago, the press secretary for the White House? He said the WikiLeaks leak, we shouldn't be fearful of them. He's just one man who paid $35 for a laptop. In your mind, is he diminishing the impact Julian Assange has made?
Chris, I didn't hear Bob Gibbs' comment in context, but based on what you said, I don't agree. I mean, it's not a question of fearfulness. We ought to be angry at Julian Assange. This is a guy who's done terrible damage to our country and to a lot of other countries around the world. And in my opinion, the U.S. government and allied governments ought to be doing everything we can to close down WikiLeaks. I mean, to try to get other countries to deny him access to servers. And I think we ought to be doing everything we can with our allies around the world to arrest this guy. He's a menace, and he's, in my opinion, he's risked lives.
Well, and that's exactly what I was just going to say. President Clinton said in a statement that the work of WikiLeaks has possibly caused lives to be lost. And you don't have to even hear Robert Gibbs in context. He said it very plain and very straightforward. We should not be afraid of one guy with a laptop. Do you think that that is the correct policy for America to have right now in one of the largest security breaches in our history?
Let me try to give the benefit of the doubt to Bob Gibbs. America is strong enough where we ought not to be fearful of anything, so long as we take action to stop people who have hurt us. And this guy, Assange, and WikiLeaks have hurt us badly. And I fear still that they're going to have blood on their hands of Americans and others who are mentioned in these leaks, and their enemies will take action against them. So I'm fearful. That's not the point. The point is, we ought to be angry at WikiLeaks, and we ought to do everything we can to shut them down. And incidentally, this is a little bit like the pirates off Somalia. You know, we got all the navies of the world, the big ones. China's out there alongside us trying to stop the pirates, because the pirates affect every country in the world, and so does WikiLeaks. So together, if we can't shut this guy down, shame on the civilized world.